Hey guys, it's Addie from Tastee Tidbits, which is a new blog that I'm getting ready to start up. My goal is to do one recipe video tutorial like I'm going to do today, and one post on like encouragement for wives and mamas with probably a little bit of scripture breakdown in there, kind of mixed in as well. So anyway, today I decided, with Thanksgiving just around the corner next week, I would share my recipe with y'all for sweet potato casserole with candied walnuts. This is a super easy recipe. It's a huge crowd pleaser. Don't be intimidated by the candied walnuts part. It's no big deal. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'll also post the link to my blog site so that you can see the recipe written down with all the instructions there. This is a great recipe if you have a man that you're wanting to win over. Food is the way to the heart, right? If you've already won your guy, this is a great one to get your mother-in-law on the hook. Alright, so I'm going to get started here. I've kind of gotten a jump start on the potatoes. I went ahead and peeled them, cubed them up, boiled them, and then I drained them, and now they're in my mixer bowl, and that's the point that we're at now. I got about 4 pounds of sweet potatoes, which ended up being about 4 medium-sized sweet potatoes. This will make about a 9 by 9 inch pan, which will probably feed about 8 people or so. I usually double that for our Thanksgiving, so you just double all the ingredients instead of what we're doing today. But anyway, so we're going to get started. I've got my sweet potatoes here and they're hot. So I'm going to add in, I've got about half a stick of butter here that I've just sliced into little pieces just so that it'll melt easier. So I'm going to pop that in. And I'm using this mixer today, but one of the regular old potato mashers, those work just fine too. I've used those a million times, so it doesn't matter either way. And I'll go ahead and tell y'all, I'm not huge on measurements. I'm kind of like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, see how it turns out, and then adjust after. So I'm going to start out for the 4 sweet potatoes. I'm going to put about 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar in, and we'll just kind of adjust as we go. It's no big deal. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, and I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of ground cinnamon, if I can get it out. I'm just going to sprinkle that in. And then I'm going to put in 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And then I've got a tablespoon of vanilla, and I'm going to add that in too. So now I'm going to let the mixer, I'm going to just flip it on and let it do the work, and it's going to just incorporate everything. Smelling good already. I'm just going to scrape this down. I can tell by looking at this already I'm going to need more brown sugar. So I'm going to add about another half a cup of brown sugar to this. This ends up being almost like a dessert, which is why everybody goes crazy over it. But it is sweet, but it's so good. Everybody will be begging you to bring this for every holiday from now on. That's the only drawback, is this will be like what you have to make every year. Okay, so I'm just going to taste it real quick. Y'all see those cookies back there? Can you see that on the cake plate? My husband made some oatmeal raisin cookies last night, and they turned out so yummy. He's brave. That is really good. I'm going to add in just a little more vanilla because I really like the vanilla in there. So I'm going to put like a half a tablespoon more. So total recap, what I have, what actually worked for this recipe: 4 medium sweet potatoes, 1.25 cups of brown sugar, a 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg is what is in here now, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, done with that. Clankety clank, I know I'm loud in the kitchen. Alright, I'm just going to scrape the sides down. So now I've got a bag of mini marshmallows, and what I like to do is I'm going to pour in about 1/3 of the bag in here, and you don't want to mix this like with that mixer. You just want to gently fold these marshmallows in and fold it just until they're incorporated. If you use the mixer, it'll end up making the marshmallows just kind of melt into here and nobody will ever know you did this. But if you just fold them in like this, it'll end up being like little pockets of marshmallow clouds, and it's like heaven. I love it. So anyway, I've got those folded in there. So now another great thing about this recipe is if you want to get ahead a little bit, you can make it up to this point a day or two in advance of Thanksgiving and just pour it into your baking dish at this point. Let it cool and stick it in the fridge with foil covering it. And then on the day of, pull it out and pop it in the oven at 350 for about an hour. You just want to go back and just check the center and make sure it's hot, and that'll save you some time on Thanksgiving Day. I've done it plenty of times and it turns out just the same either way. So that's another little trick to get ahead. Alright, so I've got a 9x9 inch pan that I'm going to pour this into. Let me see, can y'all see that? That's what it looks like at this point. So I'm going to pour this in here. Yum! Somehow every time I make this, it's like overflowing the sides, but it's just extra delicious, that's all. So just get this all spread out in here, and you just want to make sure that you have enough room left on top so that your marshmallows will fit, and they will expand some as you're baking, so if you need to ditch a little of the filling at this point, you can. Alright, so now you just top it with all your little marshmallows. I like lots of marshmallows. The more the better. And I've always wondered about doing the marshmallow cream on here. That might be a good idea too. I don't know how it would turn out. I've never done it, but I may try that and let y'all know how it goes. Alright. Okay, so at this point I am going to pop this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes. You just want the marshmallows to get a pretty golden color on them. And while this is baking, I'm going to show y'all how to make the candied walnuts. This is the great part. It's like it's crowning glory. So anyway, I'm going to pop this in the oven and then we'll get to the walnuts over here. Okay? Alright, so I just pulled the sweet potato casserole out of the oven and it looks amazing as is. Can y'all see that? Yum, looks good. Alright, so now we're going to just send it over the top with our candied walnuts. And they're, let's see, we're going to start with, I've got 1/2 cup of water. I'm just going to pour that in my pan. And then I already measured out in this bowl, I've got 1 cup of sugar, just a little bit shy of a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and about just kind of a pinch of salt, probably just a little less than 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour this in. I just want to get all that sugar and the spices incorporated there. And we're just going to let this come up to a bubble for us. And this is a great recipe whether you want to do the walnuts or if you wanted to do pecans or almonds or a mixture of the three. This is really good just to have the nuts out in a dish for people to snack on. Everybody loves them. And you can also kind of swap out the spices too. You've got the water and the sugar, and then I've done it before where I did a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of cayenne and some cinnamon too, and that's turned out really good. People seem to like that one too. It's just got a little bit of kick to it, and just something different. So anyway, that's another thing you can do if you want to. And I am using the walnut halves. This is what the package looks like. And I like the halves as opposed to the pieces just because it's a prettier end product. It just looks prettier to me that way. But it doesn't matter. If you have pieces, don't worry about going to the store to get the halves. It's going to taste the same. This looks pretty for a special occasion. Alright, so the point of bringing this to a simmer is just because we wanted to dissolve the sugar so it's not grainy on our nuts after they cook in the oven. So that has come up to a simmer, and I can tell when I'm moving my spoon around that grainy feeling is gone, and that's what you want. Just to have it at kind of a low bubble here, and then I'm going to add in about 2 cups of the walnut halves. And I let these simmer just at a real low bubble for about 2 minutes. I don't know what it is about it, but it's something, it just kind of softens up that outer skin, and it just seems like it lets that glaze really get in all the little cracks and crevices of the nut. So anyway, we're just going to let this cook for a couple minutes. And while that's cooking, another little side note that I thought about was since I've had a baby, I have been trying to find any kind of shortcuts to make things easier, quicker, less labor intensive in the kitchen. So when you are doing your sweet potatoes, if you wanted to, you could just individually wrap the sweet potatoes in foil and throw them in the oven at 350 for about an hour, just until they're tender. And then when you pull those out of the foil, the skin just pretty much slides off. So that would kind of cut out the part of having to peel them and cube them and get your cutting board and everything dirty. So it would just kind of save you some steps there. Anyway, just an idea, but it won't matter. It turns out the same either way. So I've got a cookie sheet that I've lined with foil, and then I just sprayed it with non-stick cooking spray. And then we're just going to pour the nuts out with all of the syrup that's in here. We're going to pour all of that onto this tray, and then I'm going to bake it at 350 for, I'll check it at about 7 minutes. Probably anywhere from 7 to 12 minutes, in that range. This is one of the things you do want to keep an eye on whenever it goes into the oven. Don't go off and start doing laundry and everything else, because this sugar will burn. So we want to get it all caramelized and coated on all the nuts, but you've got to be careful that it doesn't burn in the oven. So just check it at about 7 minutes. Give it a little toss with your spatula, and then throw it back in. Alright, so I think these are good. I'm going to try to show y'all what this looks like. I don't know if you can you see that? It's got quite a bit of liquid in there, so don't be worried if it looks like that. That's what it's supposed to look like. So I'm just going to pour it out on my sheet tray and just spread those nuts all out. You want it in a single layer. Don't have them stacked on top of each other, because that's how it's going to get all crispy for you. Alright, y'all can probably see it better now this way. Can you see that, how it's kind of runny? That's normal, so don't let that make you panic. That's totally normal. And wear hot pads when you grab this, because that sugar syrup gets super, super hot, and you don't want that to burn you. So, alright, so I'll pop that in the oven. I'm going to check on it at about 7 minutes, and I'll give it a flip with a spatula, and then I'll probably put it back in for another 3, but I'll let y'all know for sure how long it ended up taking me when we come back. Okay, I just pulled the candied walnuts out of the oven and I've got them cooling here on some wax paper, just because that candy, the sugary stuff, it'll stick really bad to the foil. So once you pull them out of the oven, just lay them out on some wax paper in a single layer and let them cool completely so that they get that crisp, hard candy coating on the outside. So what I ended up doing was I put them in the oven at 350 for 7 minutes initially, and then I pulled them out and I stirred them just to recoat the nuts with all of that sugary syrup. Put them back in for 5 more minutes, pulled them out, stirred them, and I put them back in for 3 minutes, stirred them, and 3 more minutes. So that was perfect today. That syrup, it'll start getting thicker every time you pull it out. It just really coats the nuts heavily. At the end, you're probably going to think they're not completely done because it's still a little bit runny, sticky. That's normal. Just after you've done it, like I said, 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, they're done. Put them out, let them cool, and they'll get that crisp candy coating on them, and they'll be perfect. So now I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle them on our sweet potato casserole. This is the best part. It's so good. I don't know if y'all can hear that like crunch when they hit those marshmallows, but it sounds good already. I'm just going to kind of mound them up in the center and let them just kind of fall to the outside. It makes for a really pretty presentation that way. That looks great. Alright, well it is all done. If y'all enjoyed this video, please feel free to share it with your friends. And make sure that you like and subscribe below, because you don't want to miss next week. I'm going to show y'all my award-winning chili recipe, along with jalapeno cheddar cornbread, which is always a huge hit. So anyway, y'all come back next week and I will see y'all then, and I'll give y'all a shot of this wonderful casserole. Try it out. Let me know how it goes for you in the comments, and I'll see y'all next week.